As cyclists, many of us always desire ways to ride better, get stronger, and whilst some of us may define that in different ways, whether that's to go further, faster, or just have fun on a new adventure, we're always looking for new ways to improve. Some people spend hours and hours training, others spend their hard-earned cash on new kit. But what if I could tell you that there was something else you could use to unlock your potential for next to nothing? The answer, of course, lies in the mind. In this video, we're going to hear from two experts on mental training who have collaborated with our new book here on GCN, The Complete Guide to Cycling Psychology. The first, Dr. Jim Taylor, is an internationally recognised authority on the psychology of performance and also an athlete in his own right. The second, Mark Beaumont, a friend of GCN, holds a whole host of cycling endurance records, including the fastest man to cycle around the world. Training the mind is just as important as training the body, and you can build up that focus and resilience to fatigue that will allow you to create a set of tools really that will push you through any flat spots. And in the book, Mark shares some of the psychological techniques that he employs to get through some of the massive endurance challenges he takes on. And earlier in the year, we caught up with both Mark and Jim, and they shared some of their insight. First up, just how to stay motivated.
I don't think anyone is super motivated all the time. I mean, people just assume that I sort of wake up at 4 o'clock every morning going, let's ride my bike. But, you know, life's a roller coaster, literally. And I'm sure people watching going, you can be told what to do in a physical training sense, but fundamentally, like, motivation is such a deeply personal thing. I mean, how do you conceptualize something like motivation?
Yeah, well, motivation lies at the heart of everything we do, because you can have all kinds of great training plans and so on and so forth, but if you don't have the motivation to get out of bed and do the work and get on the bike, or at the end of the workday to get on your bike, nothing else matters. So motivation is the foundation of everything. And yet, as you suggest, Mark, the reality is that we can't always be incredibly motivated every moment by ourselves. So a couple of key tools that can help is first, having some goals. We are wired to get a great sense of purpose out of setting a goal, working toward a goal, and achieving a goal. I find one of the best things for motivation is to ride with friends, or have a training buddy, or be a part of a club or a team. Because every day you might not be super psyched about getting up in the morning or going out to ride, especially if the weather's bad. But if you've got teammates or friends who you ride with and they're saying, no, you're going, then they're going to motivate you. And in turn, you're going to motivate them.
I find that it's so important over the last couple of years, to even setting up, groups on my phone. So I know people, have that accountability. Thursday night, we're going to head out on the gravel bikes. And even if you don't want to, or it's hard to schedule, then there's somebody else kind of like going to go, come on, we're heading out, it's important. And I think that social element clearly then spills over and helps the physical training, because somebody else, and when you're having a good day, it's you paying it back and helping them get motivated as well. So I always think it's quite important to be realistic about that, because we're not sort of born sort of happy, positive all the time. And so if you know that what you do matters and that other people care and you can look out, for me it's about sort of looking up, looking out. If I'm going to sort of push myself, but I can also sort of take other people with me, and then they're going to look after me, that's a really sort of helpful way to get through tough times.
So now you understand a bit more about motivation. How do you now build your confidence, your belief in yourself? How do you improve your ability to then go on and achieve those cycling goals?
3 simple ways to build your confidence. First, be prepared. Preparation is the foundation of confidence, because if you feel like you've done everything you possibly can to be successful, you're more likely to believe that you're going to be successful.
The way I think about that is doing the stuff that people will never see and never know about. That's your secret weapon, just knowing like the training rides that don't get talked about and the stuff that allows you to be on your A game.
2 is self-talk. What you say to yourself matters. If you say you can't do it, you probably won't. If you say, I believe I can, you're more likely to.
I think the caveat to that is probably when it's hard, like when you're going up a massive hill, you're not saying, this is easy, I'm loving it, but you're also allowed to say to yourself, this is the stuff I'm going to remember. This is kind of like that sort of inner hero bit.
Number 3, imagery or visualization. That's where before a ride, you close your eyes and see and feel yourself riding the way you want. That instills this idea, I can do this.
It's probably not a good idea to close your eyes while you're riding your bike, but I often do visualize stuff when I'm on the bike. If I'm in the Hurt Locker, I'm thinking about where I'm going to get to. The Arc de Triomphe, the end of the world.
However confident and, I guess, sure of yourself you are, when you do go out on a cycling challenge, no matter what, there will be hard moments. There's times when you have to push through, you have to dig in, and you have to take the pain. Believe me, I've been there myself, and it is always the toughest moment you can ever think of on the bike. So how do you manage this? How do you push through those super difficult moments?
3 ways to deal with a pain during a ride. First is breathe. Breathing gets oxygen into your system, helps it function better, and you actually feel less pain when you're breathing.
The important detail is it's your out breath, it's the exhale, which really brings down that stress level. So focusing on brings you back down.
Number 2 is relax your body. When you're in pain, your body starts to protect itself by bracing, and that causes you to feel more pain. So simply shaking out your muscles, lowering your shoulders, relaxing your muscles helps you reduce the pain.
You'll often see riders, especially as they get fatigued, getting quite A-framed on the bike, getting quite fixed positioned, and you need to remind yourself, and this is a mental trick, to really sort of keep that fluidity, to think how your body form is on the bike and to understand like how that changes as you tire, mentally and physically.
Number 3, connect positive thoughts and emotions with your pain. Research has shown that if you start to feel negative emotions or start to think negatively, you feel more pain. By contrast, if you associate the pain with positive thoughts like I'm working really hard and positive emotions like inspiration and pride, you actually feel less pain.
I think weirdly it can almost be distraction, like changing your thought and then changing the experience. This might sound bizarre, but I remember riding through Botswana in a lot of saddle sore and a lot of discomfort, and an elephant walked across the road in front of me, and suddenly my relationship with the saddle sores completely disappeared. There's not that many elephants maybe around where you live, but invoke the virtual elephant and distract yourself.
One of the hardest things that I've always struggled with, especially on long rides and races, is staying focused, concentrating, being on it for the entirety. So what tips do Mark and John have in terms of focus?
3 simple ways to improve your focus. First, positive. Focus on positive things that will help you get to your destination.
I also think that positive doesn't necessarily mean that you're super happy all the time. That's unrealistic, but it means that your performance, you're focused on performance, you're your own best friend, you're relevant, you're making sure that you're focused on what's important.
Second, process. Focus on what you need to do to ride your best rather than focusing on your destination of where you want to go.
I think especially when you're an endurance rider, that particularly becomes relevant because sometimes the ride is so long, it's so far that if you're getting ahead of yourself, if you're thinking about something that is not sort of in the moment, then it can become quite sort of unmotivating.
Sure. Third is present. Focus on what you need to do now. It's easy to dwell on maybe a tough section in the past or a really hard climb in the future, and that can distract you from what do I need to do in this moment to get where I want to go.
I've got a phrase that I use for myself in that situation, which is always just ride the road in front of you. Ride the road in front of you.
There will be some dark moments on the toughest of rides, and it can be easy to let those negative emotions creep in. So what are the tips from the experts on how to turn those negative spirally sort of times on a ride into woohoo, positive times? Haha.
One of the biggest challenges when you're riding is when you start to experience negative emotions. It's really important then in those situations to first acknowledge them, because if you don't acknowledge them, you can't control them and they will overwhelm you. Second is to identify the cause and look for a solution to them. That way it will resolve the negative emotions, hopefully. And third, emotions affect you physiologically. So if you find yourself letting your emotions coming down, bringing you down physically, you can pick yourself up and psych yourself up. If you find your emotions are making you tense, you can let those emotions down.
What we've tried to capture in the book is that ability to almost zoom out, parachute over yourself and go, that's what's happening, and then to address it. Because if you don't know what's going on, then clearly those emotions are going to completely dictate your behaviors. Give me some examples.
Yeah, 3 most powerful emotions you're probably going to experience on a bike is fear, frustration, and despair.
And if I was to think of all the frequently asked questions over the years from, pedaling around the planet, people always ask, what were you thinking about? Where did your mind go? And they're wanting to know about emotions, like 1,100 hours in my own head. The mind goes to all sorts of places, but it's always interesting. That's what people want to know about most, because they all ultimately want to know how to cope with those emotions themselves. So that's the heart of how you become a better bike rider, like being aware of these emotions and then trying to figure out how to deal with them.
So that was really an introduction to a couple of the key points that we talk about in our new book. And in the book, I provide this much broader framework in which I describe a bunch of mental areas, offer you a bunch of practical tools you can use. Because what's important for me is that you can actually take this information and use it when you're actually riding to become the best rider you can be and to go faster and farther.
Clearly, everyone's dreams on the bicycle are going to be entirely different. And my perspective on teaming up on a book like this is trying to find a way to describe things that fascinated me, but I didn't necessarily have the structure or the language to talk about. But the most important thing, as Jim says, is that this is not some sort of theory that lives in academia. It's as practical as what you should do to get physically strong. It's what gives you the ability to be mentally strong. And I'd love for people to be able to read this with one eye in the mirror and go, that makes sense in my world as well. And there's things which I can do tomorrow that make a difference.
So there you go, a few tips and tricks that you can employ to go faster, longer, harder, push more than you ever thought was possible, all using the power of your mind. Don't forget our new book, The Complete Guide to Cycling Psychology, is available to buy now in the GCN shop. So please do check that out and let us know your thoughts, if you excuse the pun, down in the comment section below. And also let us know if you've got any of your own tips or tricks that you like to employ to push on through those tough moments. As always, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up and we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ta for now. Whoa!